Before the Industrial Revolution, women worked with men on farms managing the dairy, gardens, orchards, and farm animals. They also worked in domestic settings, raising children and running the household.
They had no legal identity apart from husbands and were economically dependent on men.
In the late 1700s into the early 1800s, when the Industrial Revolution began to take place, urbanization occurred. This offered women opportunities to work in textile mills and factories, spending long hours away from their children.
During this time, men and women no longer worked together as partners and spent less time with their children.
The idea of women's rights began in the Enlightenment. In July 1848, the first Women's Rights Convention was held in Seneca Falls, New York, and it was led by Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Stanton.
There they drafted a declaration of sentiments derived from the Declaration of Independence. It said all men and women are equal and demanded women's rights to vote.
Working conditions were terrible, and bending over their work for long hours resulted in deformed ribs and chests. They also developed lung diseases because of breathing in the dusty air in the mills. Lastly, their long hair and skirts got caught in the machinery, and many women were crippled that way.
Women often had to work in unsanitary, dangerous environments, and they were paid 1/2 or 1/3 of men's wages. In 1780, they had few rights, and by law, most of their earnings had to be given to their husband or father.
Factory owners only hired women because they were cheap. They also viewed them as obedient because they knew they needed to support their children. They were preferred as household workers because it was considered better for women to work with children rather than men.
The Industrial Revolution opened up new jobs for women because not enough men were there to occupy the low-paid jobs.
Most jobs were filled by the working class, but despite the terrible working conditions and pay, many women liked working outside of the home. It empowered them and showed them that they could do the same jobs as men.
During the mid to late 1800s, many organizations worked to improve the pay hours and working conditions for women. They did help the factory workers that were women live a little bit more comfortably and also motivated them to seek better rights for themselves politically, socially, and economically.